Ladies and gentlemen, mesdames et messieurs, it is my utmost pleasure to have a very extra special guest in not the closet session, but the laundry room session today, Mr. Michael. Oh, I just asked you to. Coughlan.
C'est correct, ça.
He is not only a musician, he is an actor, YouTube star, a fellow audiophile musician slash, I guess you a bit of a gadget guy too?
Yes, I would say that.
So, ladies and gentlemen, mesdames et messieurs, Mike, and also actually one of the, I would say, not most important, but Metal Mike.
That's correct as well.
Metal Mike.
I have a history which precedes me, especially in the KW Cambridge area.
So thanks for being here in wonderful Cambridge, Ontario.
Thank you for having me. This is fantastic, by the way. I love.
Thank you.
I love this room. I love the bridge that you've created here. Speaking of Star Trek, absolutely fantastic. I'm a gadget guy, as you mentioned. So the speakers, wires, bells, and whistles is.
You flatter me, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Your work has not gone unnoticed.
Well, same to you.
Yeah.
We discovered each other on YouTube over 2 months ago.
Yeah, that's right.
Through a mutual friend. Hi, Shan. And yeah, you checked out my videos and I checked out yours, and then we geeked out.
Yeah.
And then we got together.
That's what it's all about. There's like a real community out there. And what's brilliant for me about the social media world is that it's easier to connect with people who have a similar vision or similar interests.
So let's start with the Roger show you did.
Yeah.
The Metal Mike show.
The Metal Mike show.
How did that stumble, or how did that happen?
I guess it really started in high school.
Oh.
I went to St. Jerome's High School in Kitchener, down on Duke Street. The building still exists, but it's now a campus for Laurier. But I wrote for the high school newspaper, and it was called the SJH Expression. And I wrote heavy metal record reviews under the moniker Metal Mike. So I think the first review I ever did was Twisted Sister.
Wow.
It could have been AC/DC Flick of the Switch. One of those two records were the very first album review I ever did. And a fellow by the name of Dave Oakham did a little cartoon caricature of me wearing Rob Halford-style leather studs and stuff with my existing haircut. I haven't changed my haircut since those days. It's so funny. I had it long for a while. But it really kind of took off within the high school community. And so in my college years, I was chomping at the bit to make a TV show out of it as a school project, which we did. We did a live broadcast from the Conestoga College cafeteria and some in the studio. And it really just morphed from there. And then I approached Rogers in Kitchener with the idea of a community program called the Metal Mike Show that would both support local artists and try to attract some larger entities from the known rock and roll world or heavy metal world.
So this question is actually a pretty good segue into my next question. And I don't remember how or where I heard this, but either it was you or somebody else made fun of you guys recording that show on an old Neve console.
Yes. Yeah,
Do you
I think
know what happened to
Shannon
that
Lyon and I
console?
were discussing that.
Okay, so that's where I would have get that.
And we are trying to surmise where exactly that Neve console is. It was a mono board.
Doesn't matter. It's
And the preamps in that alone would be worth a lot of money. And it was really underappreciated there by myself included because I didn't know what it was exactly at this point in time. But it was a real workhorse, and it was golden, like the sound that we got out of that board with some of the mixes that you can see.
Yeah, the bands,
Man.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why people cherish Neves to this day.
So who did the sound for that TV show for you?
There was a gentleman by the name of Craig Hamilton who acted as the director for the show. I was the producer. He was the director. So I approached Rogers with my idea, and they hooked me up with this guy named Craig Hamilton, who was very talented and very dedicated. And he sort of controlled the beast. I was gung-ho, yeah, let's do this, let's do that, let's drive to Toronto, there's an interview with Dave Mustaine, we got to go. And full of youthful energy, and Craig was the one like, hold on a minute, we have to make a plan. And so he did a wonderful job. And so when we were taping in the studio, we recorded a 3/4-inch videotape, U-matic tape.
Nice.
There was no such thing as a wireless setup in those days. But he directed the show in terms of the 3 camera shoots, sometimes 4 camera shoots. And he did a sound mix as well for the bands. And we often did a contra deal with some of the local sound production people to get some studio monitors in there for the bands and various gear. But that was him. He did a great job. It was really amazing. Of course, I was very involved too, and I would do some of my own shooting whenever I could. But my favorite thing was to be behind the microphone here and on the camera. It was really a blast.
That was brilliant. So, is there like a particular band you had there that stood out?
Yeah, there were so many, both like small potatoes, like local grassroots stuff. Strange Days, as I've mentioned so many times, was one of my favorite KW bands. I really enjoyed what Shannon and Mike and Larson and Dan and Paul did. They were really visceral, organic band to me. I love the big stuff too. I loved the heavy metal stuff. Megadeth, it was an absolute thrill to interview Dave Mustaine and Nick Menza now, who is deceased, the drummer.
You also interviewed the guys from Helix. Yes.
Fritz was kind of like my Steve Martin to Saturday Night Live. Fritz Hines from Helix was to the Metal Mike show. He appeared on the show 3 times. And he was a great guy, and Helix was a great band. I've recently had the pleasure of connecting with Brian Vollmer on social media because they had a show recently in Brampton with Lee Aaron, another guest on the Metal Mike show. It's great to see those guys are still laying it down. They have a new acoustic show, which is absolutely phenomenal. And I was just a big fan of all that stuff. And there's so many bands. I mean, Brett Michaels from Poison, who I recently ran into.
Oh, that's awesome.
He was such a great guy, and some people will make fun of that old hair metal stuff, and that's okay. But those guys were just having fun.
Hey, these
and
bands,
they wrote some great songs.
Yeah, they influenced a lot of other people. I mean, that's a whole domino effect, right?
Yeah, and I love to go back and listen to some of that old stuff, even to this day. But of course, I've changed since those days. I was 24 years old back in those days, I think. And now I'm writing country music and folk music and stuff like that, singing and performing on my own. And I wouldn't hesitate to say that there is some influence from that old metal scene that somehow comes out in my music as well. So, by the way, see that? Rush, one of my favorite bands.
So, actually, there's going to be another question later, but maybe we'll address that now. Favorite band of all times?
Yeah, Rush.
Rush?
Which is really funny because I don't write music remotely close to that world, but I don't think I'm capable of doing that either. But yeah, I just love that band. And I tried to get them on the Metal Mike show a few times, just didn't get any calls returned. But yeah, absolutely, they're inspiring. They've always done it their way. Their history is fascinating. For those of you who haven't seen Beyond the Lighted Stage, it's a documentary that is just out of this world, and you don't need to be a fan to enjoy it. My mom enjoyed that. She got a kick out of that. So just 3 guys who really knew what they wanted to do right out of the gate, and they did it the best.
Their way, like you said, too.
Man, their way. They didn't compromise, so... There's very few Rush songs that I can say are bad, but I will go on record as saying I'm not a fan of Roll the Bones. That's the one with the rap in the middle.
That old synth era, too. Like,
there was some good stuff there, though. I like a lot of it for different reasons. Different eras for different reasons, I think. But they always wanted to do something new and shake it up a bit. They didn't want to stagnate.
Rush. So, good old Rush.
Good old Rush, man.
Speaking, we were talking about Elix earlier. A friend of mine is actually a new guitar player for that band, Chris Jokey.
Oh, great! Yeah,
He used to be in a band. Well,
very talented too. I've seen some of his playing.
Yeah, he's still got the long hair. Bless his heart.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
But he used to be in a cover band with my younger brother years ago called the Rock Nest Monsters.
Oh, I love the name.
So, hi, Chris. If you're
Hey,
watching
Chris.
this, I know you just got back from Europe not too long ago, so welcome back. Have yourself a poutine. You deserve it. Speaking of poutine, let's talk about where you've been.
The vraies choses de Drummondville, poutine.
You know it.
Yeah, that's where it comes from.
Well, there's two big claims about poutine. I digress here with the poutine stuff, but I heard one story is Thetford Mines in the mines, and then Drummondville.
Right.
I think Drummondville was the first store that officially sold it.
Right.
Restaurant style.
They took advantage of it.
But Thetford
marketed
Mines,
it.
where the mines were, I was told that there was just a little fry stand, which was a camper back in like 40s, 50s.
Right.
And they needed to feed the miners a meal that would fill them up for 20 hours.
Something substantial. Yeah.
So they did potatoes, real gravy, like real beef broth reduction gravy, and then the cheese curds.
That makes
So you had all
sense
the food
to me.
groups.
Yep.
I like to call it for the healthy people. It's a root vegetable salad.
Yeah,
you think about it.
absolutely, yeah. From the ground.
So, anyways, there you go, folks. Little brief history on the poutine.
Little Canadiana, a little Quebecois
But
histoire.
You were there for a while. You were saying.
Yeah, I lived in the southern townships. I was in a small town called Actonvale, which is close to Drummondville. I spent a year there, and j'ai appris mon français là.
Wow, you got even the law down.
J'ai joué au hockey avec la gang.
All right, we got to cheers that.
Cheers. I love Quebec. My Canada includes Quebec. It's just such a fantastic place, and I really like when I travel now because I spent 1 year there. I can kind of communicate a little bit, and the people are very warm, and the culture is very vibrant. They have a film industry that puts English Canada's film industry to shame.
Really?
Oh man, yeah, they're really they're producing some amazing stuff out of Quebec. The French directors are second to none. In fact, it was a French-Canadian director who went on to do the recent Blade Runner sequel.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And the name escapes me now, but he's from Quebec. And the music scene is really tight, and there's real vision out of Quebec. And I think maybe because Quebec is an island, sort of in the middle of North America, and they sort of really stick close together, but they're also very driven to produce.
They're very passionate. Well, typically French people are passionate, very vocal,
creative.
Very creative.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not to say that, the Irish or the Scottish or the Anglophones don't have that. It's just...
Well, the Irish do it too, but they're just... it's all dark, and it's all depressed, and there's a lot of fighting involved.
That too, yeah.
Yeah. Read the first chapter of my book, girl. I'll whop you.
So you're in Quebec. You're also out west.
Yeah, I spent 10 years in Alberta, in the Badlands, Medicine Hat, Alberta. I was in Calgary for a year. I worked a season with the Shakespeare Company of Calgary.
I was just about to ask you about that.
Yeah.
So what do you think?
That's a highlight for me, for sure.
And actually, we're going to dab in both worlds here because you and I were geeking out about Star Trek not too long ago.
That's right, yeah.
Christopher Plummer.
Big Shakespearean actor.
Big Shakespearean actor.
One of the best Klingon villains of all time.
Bless your heart, sir. Another cheers. Here, here.
Let loose the dogs of war. Yeah, he played a terrific part in that was Star Trek VI: The Undiscovered Country.
How about Shakespeare? So, what'd you do in there? Like, obviously, you're an actor.
Yes, yeah, it's one of my passions, just like music is, and the two of them work very well together. When one gets you down, the other one can revitalize you, and they serve each other in that yin-yang kind of way. But it's one of my earliest acting memories. I started both music and acting very late in life, in my mid-30s. And so some men go out and buy a convertible sports car. Others turn to acting. But I really enjoyed myself, especially in Calgary. We did 3 plays that season. The one that you can't say in a theater, but we're in a laundry room, so it's safe to say Macbeth. And I don't believe in the curse anyway. We did Romeo and Juliet, and we did Richard III. And I had some amazing parts in each of those plays. And when you're in a full theater and all the pistons are firing and the whole team is in synchronous wonderment, you can hear and feel the crowd, even though it's a dark abyss out in front because the lights are in your face and you can't see anything except what's on stage. When something dramatic happens, you feel the collective.
Mm-hmm.
It's very powerful. Theater is very powerful. And I haven't done any in a long time, and I miss it. But yeah, certainly a highlight. I really, I'm a big Shakespeare fan. I think he is the greatest writer who, certainly the greatest to capture the human spirit in all its many facets. William Shakespeare, whether you agree he was one person or if he was a writer by committee like a lot of people propose, I don't really care. Just those stories are the best in best I've ever read.
Mellow Mike, I got somewhat of an unusual question for you now. And just give us your honest opinion about this. Why don't McDonald's sell hot dogs? Do you notice how they don't sell hot dogs? You have a theory.
J'ai remarqué maintenant. I've never thought about it before, but they don't do that.
It keeps you up at night?
Yeah.
I can't figure it out.
It will now. I think because they can't find high enough quality meat for their hot dogs. I think that's why. Because they obviously care about things like that.
Okay. Fair enough.
But they don't, and that's... they tried pizza.
They did?
Maybe they tried hot dogs at one point.
I was told they were, actually. But I don't remember. I don't recall.
I don't recall. Not in my time.
How about this?
Please let us know in the comments section below if anybody knows about McDonald's and hot dogs. Yes.
Can you cry underwater, you think?
Yeah. I'm Irish. We're very passionate people. I shouldn't say I'm Irish. I have Irish roots, but I certainly embody all those characteristics that we traditionally consider Irish. I'm fiery tempered. I'm very sentimental, and give me a few drinks and watch me sing, and I share all those national traits of Irish people, I think.
Now I understand why you like being in Quebec so much.
Yeah, they're talking about passion.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So, Metal Mike, growing up, obviously I know what type of media you listened to. You more than likely had a Walkman.
Yes, absolutely. One of the early models. I remember one of my first sort of teen memories was riding my skateboard through the neighborhood in Pioneer Park.
Okay, what kind of skateboard?
It wasn't a brand name. It was a cheapie.
Okay.
But it functioned well, and if you put oil on the bearings, it ran somewhat smoothly, which I neglected to do. Most of the time it was squeaky. But the Walkman helped that. It drowned out my squeaky wheels. But I would just, putt around the neighborhood listening to Van Halen's Women and Children First. And still to this day, that album stands up for me. It's a really great record. But man. And to hear that great stereo sound that a Walkman provided for the first time mobily, it was really something. And I spent many hours on my skateboard with a Walkman and...
Van Halen.
Yeah, Women and Children First.
Bless your heart. That's awesome. So what do you... Now, obviously, we have more than one media. We got, CDs. We still got cassette tapes if you could get your hand on. Well, Value Village has some.
Yeah, they're kind of making a comeback, I think.
Are you, where do you lean of the whole debacle between the analog and digital format there?
Well, I went through this when I was in Medicine Hat. I accumulated and put together a really killer stereo system that included a wonderful Yamaha turntable, Pioneer receiver, some terrific Pioneer speakers, and it was refurbished, and it just sounded beautiful. It was terrific. And then I had a growing collection of about 200 records. And then my lifestyle requires me to move so much that I had to sell it all and just get rid of it. And it broke my heart. But then I realized it's foolhardy for me to get into that game. What I discovered, because I'm a big fan and an audiophile, I love good sound.
Yeah.
So I started investigating FLAC files, free lossless audio codec, WAV files too, but mostly FLAC. For some reason, I've gravitated toward FLAC, and it's not because I think they're superior files or technology to the other files that are out there. But they work for me, and I have two different, because I've been exploring this medium, digital audio players. I have headphone amplifiers, and I love headphones.
I saw that Theo little player of yours. Your DAC amp there.
So, so the Theo is my amp. And
I have one at work too, actually.
Affordable, decent, and my Astel and Kern is my favorite player, and it just sounds terrific.
So let's educate people here. MP3 is bad. It's very bad, people. And here's...
my friend Chris Gashny, friend of Shannon Lyons as well, he describes the MP3 as the dirty MP3.
It is dirty.
Dirty MP3s.
Because they drop ones and zeros to make the file not so big so you can hear it. So you're losing quality. Anyways, FLAC or WAV files, do it. Wherever you go, torrents, download it, like iTunes, iTunes.
You'll notice the difference. You'll definitely notice the difference.
But MP3 bad.
But I mean, in a way, they're very convenient. They take less disk space than a FLAC file would. And I mean, in the old days, we had AM radio, and I guess the content rules the day. If the content is good, Rush still sounds good on AM broadcast frequencies. I guess the difference between FLAC files and MP3s is similar to like listening to AM radio signal versus FM stereo. Mm-hmm. There is quite a difference.
Do you have a preference between AM or FM?
Oh, I've been listening a lot to Zoomer radio out of Toronto because they don't repeat a lot of songs, which I love, and they play a lot of old stuff. They do a lot of big band. They do a lot of rhythm and blues. And when I say rhythm and blues, true rhythm and blues, not the stuff today. They play country music. And when I say that too, there's a difference between what country music is today and what it was.
Like Hank Williams Sr.?
Yeah, stuff like that. Good old stuff. Good old blues music. New Orleans jazz and big band era stuff. I love it all. But AM radio has a certain mystique. There's something about it that is fascinating to me. I like the lo-fi compressed sound.
Oh, that boomy low end on AM.
Yeah, man.
I love it.
Yeah. Coming out of a dashboard speaker and a Chevy pickup truck, it's amazing.
Yeah. You know what? I can't believe we haven't talked about your truck yet.
The van.
Your van, yeah.
The old throwback Chevy.
So I've seen more than a few videos on YouTube. Actually, why don't you plug your channel there for the folks watching?
Absolutely. You can find me on YouTube. It's actually the custom URL is youtube.com/Michael Coughlan Music. Or you can just search Michael Coughlan, Coughlan, weird Irish spelling. But yeah, van life, music, and tech. That's what I cover on my YouTube channel.
Our metal mic.
And
for the old school.
Old metal mic show footage does sneak out of the bag every once in a while.
So when did you get that puppy? Like how many years ago did you get that van?
Yeah, I guess the novelty of my YouTube channel is that I host it out of my 1985 Chevy G20 van. So it's become almost like a co-host on the show. Thanks to my friend Mike Crawley of Kitchener. He's my mechanic friend who made that thing go when things were dark and dire. And he helped me customize it. I have 70s wood paneling on the inside. Nice. I have a wood stove installed with a chimney. I have a flat screen TV on a swing pivot arm. It's a studio in a van. So I do this in my van. So
on the road.
We have musicians come in and play. It's really a lot of fun. It's basically like a a clubhouse on wheels.
Is it still the original engine in there?
No, it is not. There originally was when I got a hold of it, there was a 6-cylinder, and it has been replaced with a 4-barrel gas-guzzling 8-cylinder engine. That is working very well, thanks to my friend Mike Crawley.
So how many clicks do you have on it now?
Indeterminate. I don't know how many clicks were on the old engine, whether or not that old engine was original to that van, and the engine I put in came out of, most recently came out of an El Camino, and I don't know if it was the original engine in that either, so it's hard to tell, but it's half rebuilt and in pretty decent shape, and it's running very well, so knock on wood.
Brilliant. Yeah, I wanted to make sure that we did have a chance to plug your channel and talk about that cool van. Yeah, because I did see the stove video you've done in there too.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
And I've toured the country playing music, and that van is a wonderful motel on wheels, and it has wintered in Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta. I've slept on the side of the highway with minus 25, 26 degree weather and fired up that stove, and that's what's kept me warm and toasty in the van.
Brilliant.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And you can cook on it too, which is really nice. I do my eggs in the morning and sausages in a small frying pan. The stove itself is 12 inches by 12 inches by 12 inches. So it's very small, but it burns wood pellets or small pieces of wood that I cut up. And it's a game changer.
I bet it smells good too.
And it's that old cabin smell. Oh. Which you might be smelling some of that now.
Speaking of wood stove and vans and I guess gadgets. Can
I do this?
Oh, of course.
Just for the stereo sound for the kids at home. Oh. That's a misfire. Okay, sorry.
Actually, you know what? This reminds me of something we might talk about since we're both audiophile. Binaural audio. Have you ever looked into that? I have read about it, and I remember they discussed it when I went to Conestoga College for broadcasting, but I've never experienced it. No. It's really weird. So I don't know if you remember the inside booklet of the Radiohead album. I can tell. I don't remember which album right now, but in the booklet, there's the singer playing piano, and you see this mannequin standing behind him, which is just looks like a crash test dummy, basically. So it's just a torso with the head. Well, that's actually a Neumann microphone. So basically, they put microphone in the ears, little electret microphone in the ears, and they capture the audio that way.
Yeah.
For people watching this on YouTube, obviously, do yourself a favor, and there's a great video from the kid in New York City that does a video about binaural audio. So if you just YouTube search binaural audio New York City soundscape, oh my goodness, it's put good headphones on.
Yeah.
Which is another thing that we somewhat geeked out about last night was the HD 201s.
That's right, yeah.
Which I found
affordable, decent quality headphones, $20.
But my most favorite statement you said about these things is forget about Dr. Dre's, and these are 200 plus fashionable
fashion phones.
So HD 201s, and no, we're not endorsed by Sennheiser.
Not at all.
I wish I was.
I wish I was too. I have a headphone problem.
For the money, and they're light.
Yeah.
It's got decent leather, so your ear won't sweat too much. I mean, can't go wrong.
Not bad at all. And my favorite pair, now that we're back into headphones, is my Sennheiser HD 545 reference headset, which I bought on Kijiji, used because they don't make them anymore. They were made in the mid-90s, I think. They're so good, and I got them for $35, and they were in great shape. The only problem was that the headband cushion was worn out because that foam will deteriorate over the years and crumble away to dust.
Yeah.
So I ordered a replacement piece of foam for that headband, and they're like a brand new pair of headphones. And man, are they good!
If you, whenever they they do go on that Saturday.
Yeah.
If you want some really 80s looking headphones that will blow your ears away, check out Grotto.
Yes.
They look like
I've read so much and heard so much about them.
Like the SR80s Plus, like, I mean, these headphones go up to $2,000 if you can afford them. But holy smokes, they don't look like much, but they sound fantastic.
Yes, I've heard very good things about them. And if you follow any of the forums, I'm a big follower of headfi.org. Mm-hmm. And I read about them all the time, so they've got to be good. I've seen a few pair for sale on Kijiji and almost got them, but I was always on the hunt for something Sennheiser. But I think potentially I'm looking at Hi-Fi Man or Grado for my next purchase.
Both good.
But I'm trying to limit myself. Now, we were talking about, this gadgetry obsession that we have. So I sometimes have to draw a hard line and say, just lay off the gear for a while. And I think a good idea is to I'm going to make a rule for myself. If I want something, I have to get rid of something first. So
that's good.
Maybe trade something away in order to buy something else. Because
it's very disciplined of you.
Yeah.
Metal Mike.
I'm trying. It doesn't always work that way.
But. Let's end this train wreck of a podcast on a positive, inspiring note from our dear guest here. Any advice you would have to, new musicians, new actors, something that you learned the hard way that you could potentially help somebody, not necessarily go down that road, just to make it easier on them.
To not do it?
Or to do it, maybe.
Well, I'll tell you a story. I was a salesman for a while, and I was told by, society in general, they tell you, cover your ass, do something that's going to pay the bills. And while I agree we need a roof over our heads and we need food in our bellies, I think it's a crime to ignore the heart. And when I was struggling with this as a younger person, I remember I was watching TV one night, and there was an artist from Alberta, strangely enough, by the name of Peter von Tiesenhausen on the CBC, and they were doing an expose on him and his work. And I was so taken by his art that I was captivated. And I was keeping a journal at the time, and I made notes about this artist and his work. And I thought nothing of it the next day. But the next day, I was on a return visit to Waterloo because I was living in Toronto at the time. And I went to one of my favorite bars called the Jane Bond.
Yes.
And this is, 20 years ago now. But I was going to the Jane Bond, and out front was a pickup truck that I'd seen in this documentary about the artist Peter von Tiesenhausen. And on the back were his giant life-size wooden sculptures tied up in a canvas cover. And because I'd seen his work on this documentary the night before, I knew exactly what was on that truck. And I couldn't believe my eyes, and I had to go in and investigate. And, of course, there was Peter von Tiesenhausen sitting at the bar in the Jane Bond. And I really couldn't believe it. So I sat beside him, and I ordered a beer from Bernard. And I didn't say anything for the first few minutes because I kind of had to compose myself because I couldn't believe that this was all happening. And finally I mentioned, my name's Mike, and I saw you on TV last night, and I really love your art, and I really think it's great. And I even, I wrote about it in my journal, and he asked me if he could see what I wrote. So I gave it to him. And he was really blown away that his art had affected somebody that much. But that was at a time I was struggling with whether or not to go down this creative route and make music and be an actor and all those things. And I discussed that with him. And he was the guy who told me, he's like, you know what, man? Sometimes you just got to do what you got to do. And you got to listen to that voice in your head. And I took that as a sign because it was so coincidental. It was unbelievable, the circumstances and how that went down.
It was kismet.
Yeah. And I really dig, check out Peter von Tiesenhausen. He's a terrific artist. And he was a great mentor on my road to the realization of an artist's life. So do
Very
it,
cool.
kids. Do it.
Do it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, there you go. You have it. Metal Mike and the Laundry Room with this French bastard here.
Sébastien,
Thank you so much, sir.
Merci beaucoup.
Oh, de rien, monsieur. Le plaisir est le mien.
Bon.
Thanks for watching, and don't forget to check out his channel. And if you're still watching this after 36 minutes, well done. This was clearly time well wasted. Thanks again for watching. Take care, folks.